Well, it's time now for a business update, and we're starting with a sudden policy reversal from the Liz Truss government in the United Kingdom. The plan to cut taxes for the richest 1% in the country has been scrapped. Charles Pellegrin, our business editor, is here with more.
Hey, Aaron, absolutely. It's been a whirlwind 10 days for Kwasi Kwarteng, Liz Truss's financial minister. Since he unveiled his Reaganomics-tinged mini-budget 10 days ago. The £45 billion mini-budget showed a raft of unfunded tax cuts, including for the richest 1% of the country, those earning over £150,000 a year, taxed at 45%. The government was convinced this would stimulate growth in a call back to the heyday of trickle-down economics. But that announcement didn't get the expected reactions from the markets. Concerns over increased borrowing and fiscal deficits prevailed. The sterling crashed against the dollar at levels not seen since the mid-'80s, and government borrowing costs kept pushing higher as investors saw UK debt as a riskier asset. The pressure became too much, with pension funds worried about being able to meet their margin calls and the Bank of England having to step in, promising to buy its own government debt to the tune of £65 billion over 2 weeks. Leading us to this morning, and this statement issued on Twitter by Kwasi Kwarteng, faced with the prospect of his plan not making it through the House of Commons. He says it's become clear the abolition of the 45p rate is a distraction from our mission to tackle the challenges facing the country. We get it. We listened. The news has sent the value of the pound rising against the dollar, and the British 10-year gilt yield has returned below the 4% threshold. Looking at the pound, well, currently it's just over £1, just over $1.11, much higher than it was after that mini budget was presented 10 days ago. It feels like 10 years. Let's have a look at how the markets are faring now in Europe. No positive feedback on the FTSE at the open, down over 1%. And the Paris CAC also down by 1.18%. Shares trading down on the back of what we saw in Asia. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong down as well by 0.75%. The Shanghai Composite was shut for a national holiday today, as well as the Kospi and Seoul. The Nikkei trading down at first, but then catching some of those gains later on, closing at up about 0.75% as well. And some movements on oil prices as well, after reports that the OPEC Plus alliance is planning on cutting oil production again to prop up falling oil prices. The oil producer alliance, led by Russia and Saudi Arabia, will be meeting on Wednesday. Oil futures jumping after those reports. You can see the West Texas Intermediate up almost 3%, and the Brent up by over 2.5%. And changing gears now to the energy crisis. Unlike other countries in Europe, Germany long refused to build liquefied natural gas terminals in its ports. Russia's invasion of Ukraine changed all that. The government has ordered the construction of 6 LNG terminals and 2 floating terminals that will start operating in December of 2022. But environmentalists are angry and say the terminals will make Germany miss its climate commitments. Well, France 24 visited the port at Wilhelmshaven, where the first floating LNG terminal will start up at the end of the year. It's a report by Sébastien Millard, Anne Maillet, and Nick Spicer.
Just off the coast of Wilhelmshaven, less than a kilometre from the shore, is Germany's fastest worksite. Construction of the first floating LNG terminal is almost done. It took less than a year instead of the usual 5.
The floating terminal will be anchored here, and the LNG tankers will berth here, where we are, to feed the installation.
From December onward, the LNG, or liquid natural gas, will arrive here, be regasified, and then injected into the national network. Between 5 and 7 billion cubic meters are expected each year, enough to help ward off a shortage of gas as Moscow cuts off most supplies.
This terminal makes a big contribution to energy security. Here we can replace 20% of the natural gas Russia sent us before the crisis. That represents about 8% of what the country consumes as a whole.
Parliament voted to accelerate the construction of new gas terminals, 6 LNG terminals will be up and running by 2025, 2 of them by the end of the year. But they will be built next to national parks, such as the Wadden Sea, and their possible impact on the environment has some people concerned. Climate activists accuse the government of choosing energy security over the environment.
The German government rents this floating storage and regasification terminal for €2,000 a day. Imagine how many households and families we could help with that money, so that they could equip themselves with solar panels and thermal solar collectors.
But in this time of crisis, the imminent arrival of LNG in the country's energy mix should help Germany get through the winter.
That's it for this business update, Erin.
Charles Pellion, thank you.